are a few subjects as contentious as fracking right now. Some say the controversial drilling method is destroying the environment. Others say it's a safe way for America to get their long dreamed of energy independence. Nobody, however, offered an in-depth look at how the fracking revolution got started and the real people behind the boom until now. Greg Zuckerman is here to talk about his new book, The Frackers. Welcome, Greg.
Great to be here.
All right, so how did a hedge fund reporter, you're famous for writing about hedge fund powerhouses like John Paulson and George Soros, how did you all of a sudden start writing about wildcatters and fracking?
Right, so a couple years ago, I looked around at Wall Street and I realized it was a little bit boring and not much going on kind of post-financial crisis to get me excited and no positive stories. And there was one story out in the business world that was exciting and controversial, as you mentioned, and that's this revolution we're having. If you're over 30 years of age, to think that we're going from a period where we're running out of energy, oil and gas, to where we're going to export gas, and we're moving towards energy independence is remarkable. So it also occurred to me that no one had really told the story, as you mentioned, of how it happened. So I tried to figure it out.
How do the wildcatters that you discuss in the book compare to the risk takers on Wall Street?
There are a lot of similarities, believe it or not. So in my first book, The Greatest Trade Ever, the guys who figured out the financial crisis was coming, they ignored conventional wisdom. Conventional wisdom was that the housing market wouldn't collapse, and yet a few guys who weren't housing experts are the ones who made billions. Same thing kind of here, where the experts, the guys who know the most about energy, Exxon, Chevron, all the specialists, they said, America, there's no way you can get all this oil and gas from shale, this really tough compressed layer. It looks a little bit like this table or tombstone rock, they call it. Go offshore, go to Africa, go to Asia. That's where all the majors were doing. And yet a few kind of oddballs who I write about, mid-level guys, some of them didn't go to college, some didn't have any geology or engineering background. They said, hey, let's try to figure out if we can get it from this country, and they succeeded.
Is this an old story? I mean, we've seen oil booms and busts in America before. What makes this one different?
It's a good question. So far, the numbers are pretty remarkable. So some people say, well, yeah, we've had great production, but it's going to slow down. But it's been remarkable production. So just a few years ago, 2005-ish, we were producing 5 million barrels a day. Now it's 8 million barrels. And just last year, we had this biggest rise ever in 1 year. So, and people expect it to keep going. Now, it's not going to go on forever, but it's different in that it's going to be something that's going to continue over several years. And we have enough natural gas, according to the people that I talk to and people out there, to last generations. So it is kind of different.
One character that you write about in the book, and he is a character, he's also the former CEO of Chesapeake, Aubrey McClendon. Now, he made a whole lot of money drilling, lost a whole lot of money. It was a very incestuous relationship he had with the company and the other drillers. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so he's a fascinating guy because he and his colleague Tom Ward, they started this company with $50,000. They built it up to the second largest natural gas producer in the country, and they made billions. Literally, they were worth $3 billion each in 2008. And then I describe how they leveraged up too much. They almost didn't get the lesson of the last few years, and they had too much leverage. They bet on their own company, to their credit to some extent. They didn't take the money out, but they borrowed too much, and the company also was reckless. And I describe how he begged Goldman Sachs not to give him a margin call, and they all collapsed on him. He dug out of it, but he did so many aggressive deals that they eventually kicked him out. But we do owe him some gratitude. They produce so much natural gas that we all are paying much less for our gas.
Now, your book is more of a biography about these characters drilling for oil. It doesn't get into the environmental aspects of fracking, because once again, it is a contentious issue. You get into it a little bit, but you really are not deciding one way or the other about the morality, I guess you can call it, of fracking. What is your view about it? Is it safe? Which way do you come down?
So I do have a little section at the end. I frankly didn't think it'd be an enjoyable book. I want to write a book that people are going to enjoy.
Well, it wasn't the point.
That wasn't
this particular book.
Exactly. I have a dramatic narrative. I did talk to scientists and experts, and the way I look at it is both sides are overstating their case. So the producers who say, drill baby drill, we're fine, fracking is totally harmless, are overstating the case because they polluted, casing sometimes it doesn't work, they spill, they've done, and I wouldn't want this in my backyard necessarily unless I was paid a lot of money for it. It's dirty, etc. And the anti-fracking people overstate their argument because it's not poisonous. It can be done properly. You talk to people like Environmental Defense Fund. They're working with producers to put pressure on them and to get it done properly. So it can be done properly. That's not to say that it is being done all the time properly. So that there's a big step there that we have to, as a country, get.
And then how does this all end? Right now you have parts of America, North Dakota, and Pennsylvania and Texas. You have people selling their land, people drilling in their backyards. People do want it in their backyards because their land values rise. So how does it all end?
Well, for some people, it's just transforming their lives, and it's giving a shot in the arm, I would argue, to small-town America, a lot of places. I traveled all over the place, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Texas, etc. And there are towns where they were dying out, and young people are moving away, and now people are moving there, and it's a nice resurgence and shows resiliency in the part of America. But there are other places like New York where there's still going to be pushback, and I think that's fine. If people don't want it in their areas, that's fine. We're still getting to the point where we're producing so much, we're moving towards energy security, if not independence. So I would argue that Obama and the administration, they're probably not going to be able to do much about it because 90% of all wells at this point are fracked. So it's here to stay. Let's work with the producers. Let's put pressure on them to make sure they do it properly, is the way I would argue.
Well, thank you for drilling into the facts and producing a fantastic book. The book's called The Frackers. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
And thank you.